Hi everybody. I have probably already said in my other videos that I have studied in Germany, International Business Management. Maybe sometimes I repeat it, but it is definitely not a self-advertising like I have a European education. Like today, I have always had a point when I mentioned that I have studied in Europe. And in this video, I'm gonna talk about the differences between Europe and Azerbaijan. This is a very important topic because it never loses its actuality. Especially, young segment of our population is prone to foreign countries, in particular to Europe and USA. Some people go there to have an education and come back. Some people go there to live their whole life. Some just can't go. But have in mind that Europe or USA is a wonderland and everything is positive there and criticize everything in Azerbaijan. In our country, whenever and whomever I say that I've studied and worked in Europe and then came back, they react with a question. Oh, really? Why did you come back? So this reaction alone says something, right? And I think that adoration of our people of the West is based on the fact that they are here, this is a problems, and they assume if these problems don't exist in Europe, then Europe is a better place. As a person who lived and observed well what's going on in Europe and in Azerbaijan, I can give you a valid overview about the differences between the two regions and between the two cultures and the challenges of being in Europe. First and foremost, don't make illusionary dreams that Europe is a necessarily better place to live and you gotta go there no matter what if you have a chance to. I would say don't hurry up. Don't let yourself be carried away. You might be disappointed, and I will tell you why. To get an education there is highly recommendable though. It is true that the level of education in Europe is significantly higher than that in Azerbaijan. And if you are educated, you know how things work. And if you know how things work, you can create something special, a product or service. You can sell it, you can be a businessman, an entrepreneur, or you can be a specialist in specific area. uh, by the way, I do underline the word specialist because specialism doesn't mean that you just have a diploma in that specialty, right? And if you be either of these, then you can be successful in Europe as well as in Azerbaijan. You might say, no, in order to be successful in our country, you have to have dayı, let's call it a supporter. Yeah, it might be true. If you are that much higher than somebody, and if that somebody has a supporter, it's gonna be chosen, not you. And that's why you blame the system and justify your misfortune because of the system. But let me tell you something. This system is gonna be everywhere for you. In Germany, if you are that much higher than an ordinary German, the German is gonna be chosen, not you. In order you to be chosen, you have to be that much higher. An example for USA, there was a Russian guy who studied physics in Harvard University and he was interviewed and asked questions about the job opportunities after the university. And he said in quotes, the ones who or whose families have better connections will get better jobs. So you see, the system is everywhere. Some might say, yeah, but even when we are that much higher in Azerbaijan, we don't get anything anyway. Wrong. It's incorrect. I'm an employer and I have scrutinized thousands of CVs. I have interviewed hundreds of people and my business is B2B and I've met up until now with hundreds of businessmen and all the businessmen, all the business owners unanimously agree on the fact that in our country the businesses suffer from incompetent and low qualified workforce. And I can enumerate for you many instances to back up this statement, but this is a topic of another video. Now let's talk about Europe. There's a word, more exactly, there's a phrase so-called culture shock, and it happens when you get cultural shock. More specifically, the way everything works in your country might work up to 180 degrees differently in another. out of which emerge miscommunication, misinterpretations, disintegration, and isolation. As a result of which, your life in foreign countries might be monotonous and unexciting. You're gonna have a communication problem. And I'm not talking about a language barrier. I hypothesize that you have already overcome the language barrier. While I was working in a German company, my colleague, the German one, asked me, Parvil, is this German word written correctly? You know grammar better. So imagine to what extent I had overcome the language barrier. But at the same time, with the same people, when we went to a restaurant to lunch, those Germans were talking only to each other, and we internationals sitting aside looking at them. I tried to join them, tried to join the conversation, and I asked, are you talking about this topic? One of them turned around, briefly answered my question, and turned back and went on talking only to each other. And we poor internationals remain sitting aside. So there's a big problem of integration. By the way, I don't accuse anyone. Nobody has to be a friend of mine. I thank all my previous colleagues there in that company in Germany. I am very grateful to the company that they hired me. I have learned something. But the reality is the reality. Whenever you see a Russian guy, as an Azerbaijani person, you think as if you saw your brother. But normally we are different from Russians, right? There was a Turk who was born and raised in Germany. He spoke little Turkish. His German was fluent. So he was more German than Turkish, right? Even he said to me, Parvil, time to time, I feel this kind of alienation. I feel like I'm in a foreign country, but I was born and raised here. I am a resident of this. I'm a citizen of this country, not just a resident. There was a Georgian friend of mine, another example, who was there over 10 years, graduated from two universities, worked in Deutsche Bank, and Deutsche Bank was a colossal bank in Germany. And his salary was over 5,000 euros. So it's not a refugee from Syria or Afghanistan who came here and knows nothing and is being burdened to German economy. He's a highly qualified person, and he's a upper middle class resident of the country. And he said to me, by the way, I went to his place when I found a job in Berlin from Cologne, and stayed in his place temporarily. And I asked him, how is it to be around Germans? Because up until now, I have been around internationals. My university was international. And he said, Parvil, coincidentally, it is my birthday party. And look who came to my birthday party. This one is Indian, the other one is Pakistani, those are Turks, and this one came from South American continent, and I don't exactly remember the country. So do you see any Germans, he said? In the period of time, which was over 10 years, he didn't have a single German friend. And the problem is not just restricted to relationship issues. There is a noticeable gap in expectations, huge complications in interpretations, and I'm not talking about that someone says something ambiguous and the other one don't get it, or about any pronunciation problem. This is an issue which is solvable. What I'm talking about is understanding, actually not understanding their real thoughts about you, and misinterpretation of their behavior towards you. And I'm gonna explain what I mean. Europeans, especially Germans, as a rule try to be polite. Interestingly, only in the beginning of the conversations. This is what makes it harder to identify their genuine attitude towards you. For example, while I was a student, I worked simultaneously as a garçon, as a waiter in a hotel. By the way, I have done everything to get integrated in that society all along. I learned the language, I put it in use, I worked, and so on and so forth. I went to the work for the first time. My boss greeted me so warmly to my surprise, and I thought, oh, how kind people they are. After roughly 1 hour, I get a message. I answered. I took out my phone, answered the message, and put it right back into my pocket. The boss approached to me so madly and angrily. The phones are forbidden. You cannot use your phone while working. I'm an educated person. You could have said it to me as polite as you were in the beginning. I would understand it. Which one are first? And second, which one are you? The man who demonstrated to me overly courtesy, or the psychopath who gets angry at the first opportunity? If you are the first one, then please be polite until the end. If you are the second one, then who needs your fabricated spectacle in the beginning? I remember I was in Russia and I had just finished my internship in a company. I went to another where my internship certificate had to be translated into German language and be asserted by the notary. I stepped in the room and I asked, can anybody help me with this certificate's translation? Nobody answered. I asked again, then a Russian woman loudly and angrily said, young man, don't use this, there's nobody there. The one who is in charge with the translations is out. When he comes back, he will deal with your issue. Pretty much rude, right? But you know what? I prefer this over the fake one. At least I know she's a rude person. I can define my expectations accordingly. But I couldn't determine what kind of person that polite German was. In our country, by the way, we have our own problems. This is another matter. But our communication is way more authentic than the Europeans. If somebody is angry, he seems angry. If somebody is neutral, he's gonna show this neutrality to you. He's not gonna smile at you superficially or spuriously. If somebody is polite and kind enough, he's gonna demonstrate this politeness until the end, sincerely. So there are a lot of culture-related problems that might shock you. So don't raise your expectations. There's a lot to say, but this is very extensive topic, and time is unfortunately up. In future videos, I'm gonna talk about this subject again, and so see you later.